Alright, so today we're going to be looking at SCP-204, also known as the Protector, and its object class Keter, and is considered a nanoscopic SCP by the Volgun. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video and channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. Now, it's been some time since we've seen the SCP, so I figured, hey, why not just watch one here and there, and I kind of just closed my eyes, looked at my list, and wherever it landed, and it landed on SCP-204. No idea kind of what to go off, so I'm not gonna say too much. Gonna go straight to the video, but before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that notification button so you get notified every time I do upload. Let's go ahead and see what SCP-204 is all about.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-204. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-204-1 and SCP-204-2 are to be kept in a 10 by 10 meter fortified holding area inside. The holding area must be constructed out of armor-plated steel and heavily reinforced concrete. The holding area must also be vacuum-sealed and contained within an outer shell with a higher air pressure that must always be maintained with at least 2 psi over the current air pressure in the holding area. At least one full security team must be kept on standby at all times. It is only during SCP-204-1's scheduled feeding times that D-Class personnel are allowed to enter for the purposes of maintenance. SCP-204-1's typical diet consists of any kind of meat, preferably from living subjects. Such subjects will often consist of aggressive animals such as wild dogs, bulls, or any other animal that must be euthanized due to aggression. However, D-Class personnel will also suffice if such food sources are unavailable. SCP-204-2's diet consists of a regular human diet with no special measures required. SCP-204-2 is allowed to make special requests, but any and all requests must be given O5 approval. Any personnel caught attempting to deliberately provoke SCP-204-2 will be immediately terminated.
Okay, so I know that the picture is always kind of supposed to be representing what the SCP is actually supposed to be, right? And there's two of these, and it was a 10 meter by 10 meter room, or 10 meters by 10 meters covered with, I think it said concrete or cement. Sorry, there's like a lot of external noise that's kind of distracting me, but obviously I don't see how this thing could eat meat. It looks like it's, I mean, obviously kind of looks spider-like, right? Now, nanoscopic. Now I'm assuming that nanoscopic, I mean, because you hear nano, right, and you think of small, right? So I don't know necessarily how small it is. It looks like this middle, whatever you want to call it, fucking spike right here. Maybe that's where it takes the meat, because this thing doesn't look like it eats meat. It looks robotic, and obviously this looks like it could be like an quote-unquote eye, if you want to call it that. So they'll give meat, and sometimes it'll be a D-Class, which I forgot how much it would actually start to be a D-Class. So
security personnel are required to ignore any and all of SCP-204-2's attempts to provoke a response from them unless there is a clear and present risk of containment breach. Failure to do so will result in harsh administrative punishment. When SCP-204-2 is about to turn the age of 14, the Foundation must initiate Containment Protocol 204. Further details may be found in Containment Protocol 204 requirements. In the event of a containment breach, EMP generators must be immediately activated in order to keep SCP-204-1 disabled. Once EMP generators have been activated, security teams have approximately 30 seconds to neutralize SCP-204-2 before SCP-2041 can adapt and reassemble itself. If containment cannot be achieved in this time, SCP-2041 must be contained by conventional means. Security teams and agents are authorized to use any conventional weaponry at their disposal to contain SCP-2041 and SCP-2042. If SCP-2042 is terminated during containment, then Containment Protocol 204 must immediately be initiated. Description: SCP-2041 is a semi-organic nanomachine colony that follows SCP-2042 as a form of protector. SCP-2041 spends the majority of its time in a dispersed cloud, where it is almost impossible to perceive with normal human senses. However, if SCP-2042 is put into danger, or if SCP-2042 commands it to, SCP-2041 will instantaneously materialize into a solid physical form. The exact shape and nature of this form is subjective, depending wholly upon SCP-2042's view, state of mind, and imagination. Despite its variable nature, SCP-2041 has a number of common traits. These include massive strength, large size, basic intelligence, perfect obedience to SCP-2042, and the ability to regenerate itself after consuming living flesh. SCP-2041 is vulnerable to conventional weaponry and can be temporarily forced back into its dispersed state if enough damage is inflicted.
Okay, so that's a good thing to know, because I thought there was... So the picture that we saw, kind of like the little spider part of it, that's kind of what I thought, that they were both are. But so 2041 is actually this little more malleable thing that is quote-unquote like the protector, right?
SCP-2042 is always a child, ranging from 4 to 14 years old. Physically, there is nothing outstanding about SCP-2042 besides its ability to call upon SCP-2041. All incidences of SCP-2042 have common traits. All of them have had a history of abuse and danger, with many developing acute mental disorders as a result. This makes instances of SCP-2042 difficult to contain in any traditional manner, as great care must be taken to keep them in a stable state. It appears that SCP-204 is attracted to such children, though why or how it finds them is currently unknown. If SCP-2042 is terminated or reaches the age of 14, then SCP-2041 will abandon it and find a new child to imprint on. As a form of self-preservation, if SCP-2041 cannot find a suitable child, it will immediately materialize and go berserk, attacking.
Alright, so a 14-year-old child. I remember going back into trying to figure out like what SCP to actually check out, and I remember sometimes it could be very straightforward, because obviously I know that these are written in document type format, and you can know exactly what's going on. But sometimes it gets a little confusing, because I'm not thinking, okay, the spider thing, right, is SCP-204-2, and the other picture was the -1. But now there's a 14-year-old child, and once that child turns 14, it tries to go to find someone else, because it'll embed it. And as he said right there, he wants to find someone else to imprint on it, right? So it's really 2041-1 that is the actual SCP. -2 is just the child.
Anything in sight. Once SCP-2041 finds a suitable candidate to protect, it immediately imprints upon SCP-2042 and will follow until SCP-2042 expires or SCP-2041 decides to leave of its own accord. At first, SCP-2041 appears benign, protecting SCP-2042 from overt threats. However, through careful study and observation, it has been noted that all incidences of SCP-2042 begin to adopt much more aggressive, danger-seeking behavior with little regard to human life. It is theorized that SCP-2041 is able to manipulate It is assumed that since SCP-2041 requires organic flesh for sustenance, it needs SCP-2042 to be in danger in order to justify its activation. See Addendum 1 for further details. Addendum 1. There have been numerous recorded incidences where it is believed SCP-2041 has been involved. The first such recorded incident was when a car was found in a residential street, completely torn apart and covered in partially devoured human remains. Similar incidents occurred until agents managed to track SCP-2041 to where they made contact with the first recorded incarnation of SCP-2042. It took 3 more attempts and numerous casualties before SCP-2041 and SCP-2042 were successfully contained. Interviews with SCP-2042 revealed that it seemed to feel a need to experience danger, such as standing in traffic or provoking hostile responses from others. When questioned on its reasons, SCP-2042 simply replied that SCP-2041 allowed it to. Containment Protocol 204. In order to keep SCP-2041 successfully contained, it has been necessary to keep a permanent stock of candidates to replace SCP-2042 in the event that the current one is terminated or abandoned. Ideally, all candidates should be orphans below the age of 10 with a history of abuse. However, in times of need, Article 12 of Containment Protocol 204 may be authorized to allow candidates that don't meet specific requirements. They will be put under the supervision of caretakers, which will consist of D-Class personnel convicted of violent crimes, child abuse, and with Foundation staff present to prevent inadvertent termination of candidates.
Okay, I also forgot some of just the horrible things that the SCP Foundation does, right? I mean, in the name of the greater good type deal. But in any case, all right, so they first found it in that car where they had found human remains, and then they ended up seeing that the first incarnation of the 204-2, and that he was saying that it felt the need to put itself in danger. Obviously, because they did say that the -1 is trying to justify a reason to be able to get its sustenance, human flesh, right? Because in its mind, it would say, hey, it's protecting the child. So this seems like some form of AI, right? Or like, obviously, because I don't know if the pictures kind of having something to do with it. I don't believe, it doesn't seem like it's going to get into like maybe who created it, how did it come to be? Is this in reference to maybe, I don't remember the groups. Like I remember Clockworks. I remember what was it? Like Anderson Robotics also, right? Or like I wonder if this has something to deal with something that someone within the SCP universe has created that I guess maybe was supposed to be good, but then being an AI, it started to preserve itself, but it still maybe had like a protocol to do its normal function, which was protecting. That's a little far-reaching, but I hope that made sense. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to think of things right now. You know, yeah, okay.
If SCP-2042 successfully reaches the cutoff age of 14 years and SCP-2041 abandons it, the former SCP-2042 must undergo a rigorous amnestic treatment and a thorough psychological examination before being reintegrated into a government foster program. If it is deemed that the former SCP-2042 cannot be successfully reintegrated, then the subject must be immediately terminated. Addendum 2. As of the writing of this report, the Foundation has contained 13 instances of SCP-2042. 11 instances exhibited the trademark hostile and violent behavior typical among all instances of SCP-2042. However, 2 instances of SCP-2042 showed a marked improvement in their mental health and stability, and had the lowest number of containment breach attempts. It is currently unclear what specific factors trigger these differences in behavior, as the exact mechanisms SCP-2041 uses to manipulate its host is still unknown. Addendum 3. Though there is evidence to suggest that SCP-2041 may be sentient, or possibly even sapient, all attempts to communicate directly with SCP-2041 have resulted in failure. Currently, the only feasible method of communicating with SCP-2041 is to use SCP-2042 as an intermediary. Unfortunately, the violent tendencies and hostile behavior exhibited by nearly all instances of SCP-2042, as well as their questionable mental stability, make this approach highly unreliable.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. Now, obviously, at the end, I was also starting to also think about like the form of communication as far as getting it to talk, maybe find out what its objective is besides protecting someone or who ends up being that -2, or maybe it's just programmed to do what it does. But obviously, when they say that the only way to really communicate with it is through -2, 204-2, but obviously because of the hostile nature, that doesn't really seem to be feasible. So, feasible. Look at me, I'm using big words now. So, you know what? I really forgot how much SCP can really throw me for a loop and my way of thinking. But you know what? I like it because it really starts to make me think. And as far as the part, because I don't know if it was just pictures, but the pictures were kind of throwing me off because I saw two. I saw, you saw like, or unless it was just showing what it could like turn into, right? Also, I don't think there was ever a reason that was specified as to why this only goes until the age of 14. Now, I think of 13, 14, right? That's kind of around the time that you start going through puberty. I don't know if that has something to do with it. And obviously, there's lots of mention of violent, like just violent things, or like things that I believe it was that it was going for kids who were in like abusive homes. Obviously, because typically that way it could kill whoever say was, for example, was abusing a child, and then be able to gain the human meat for whoever it was. And then the part about letting D-class personnel take care of them, obviously I know not all were criminals from what I can remember. I understand that some of them are just homeless people that people wouldn't necessarily miss. So I hope that at least they would be the ones, because technically they were just people who were in a shitty place and they ended up getting captured, by the SCP Foundation. But obviously some of them of the D-class are actually horrible people, right? And just on the last letter note, I have heavy suspicion that this has to deal with Anderson Robotics or one of you with other organizations, right? Because I don't know. I mean, whenever I think of like something that is technology based that was SCP, I kind of think of Anderson Robotics. Obviously, the name. Maybe it's. I haven't seen a Carter and Dark, if I remember correctly. Could be them. I mean, they're very suspicious. They're very kind of in the shadows. From every single piece of knowledge that I know of the SCP universe, so it could be them. I have no idea though. If they do have to deal with, as far as with like say Anderson Robotics, for example, and that's always gonna be my example just because it has the word robot in it. If anyone does know as to maybe if it correlates with the group, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Be very curious about that. But other than that, don't really got too much else to say. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. It really does help me a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it. It really helps me improve the channel. And leave me a little comment just so I can know like kind of what it was. I'm still smacking my lips every now and then, so it could be that. But in any case, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.